She was totally conscious. She knew what was going on. She knew that they were present in her, and she could hear them. They would speak to her about us. And I'll never forget the first time when I was sitting there next to him, and he said to the spirit in her, I command you to look at the priest. I command you to look at the priest of Jesus Christ. And the spirits don't ever want to do what you tell them to do. They're not very good. And so you have to tell them several times, I command you in the name of Jesus Christ to look at the priest. And she would go, She didn't want to do it. It didn't want to do it. And I'll never forget when it obeyed the first time, and the eyes that looked at me were not her eyes. And the hatred that was in those eyes. And that's where I realized how much the demons hate. And over I've heard people say, once they're aware that they may have spirits, and they start to become aware of those voices, and the spirits are speaking to them, they have said, Father, I can't tell you what it's saying about you. I can't tell you how much it hates you. I said, I know, that's what they are. They are pure hatred. And they want to destroy. So that was my beginning. He and I worked with his wife for a couple of years. They have now moved back to Toledo. And then during that couple of years, he and I worked with another lady down in San Francisco. She had gone through, she had joined the Mormon church. And when you join the Freemasons or the Mormons and things like that, you go through occult practices, whether you know it or not. And so through that, she had picked up spirits. And so we were striving to deliver her from them. And then he and his family moved back to Toledo. From that point, I started reading books, looking at videos. He started teaching me more. And then after about a year and a half, maybe about a year and a half ago or so, we had one exorcist in the diocese, and he was 80 years old, and he was not doing well physically. He passed away about 5 years ago, or no, it was 5 months ago. And so I just wrote a letter to the bishop, and my buddy, he said, you probably know more about this. You don't think you know anything about it, but you probably know more about it than any priest in your diocese right now. Because nobody's doing this, nobody's talking about it. We have forgotten about it. And yet what I didn't realize is that throughout the church, training in the demonic was a normal part of seminarian formation. It was just a part of what we received. But since Vatican II, it's dropped out. And so I pray that it's now starting to come in. I wrote a letter to the bishop, and I said, if you want me to be an exorcist, I would do that for the diocese. And he wrote back and said, yes, I want you to be an exorcist. So I am the only exorcist in the diocese. Have I ever done an exorcism? I've done 3, but they were all over this family. It was the first family I told you about, who moved back to Toledo, over his wife and himself and his daughter. His daughter was 12 years old. They were all very mature. They had all been in deliverance. We had all been praying over them for many, many months, and even a couple of years with his wife. And so there weren't any great manifestations. I'll talk a little bit about how I do a deliverance ministry later on. So that's probably a question you were going to write down. And so there wasn't, heads were not spinning and things like that like you see in the movies. And so I've done 3. Other than that, I just did healing ministries and deliverance ministries. And we'll talk more about those terms as we go on. Every year I go to the Chicago conference. They've had 3 now, every August. And exorcists and people in usually the charismatic ministry, the healing ministry of the charismatic movement. There were 140 of us this last August. And I flew back to Toledo, and my buddy and I drove over to Chicago, and we were together for that. And exorcists, people in deliverance ministry for a week there, just talking about this ministry and what's going on. People from all over the world. Maybe Father Amor, who's the official exorcist from Italy, he'll be able to be there one time. We'll see. And now what I'm trying to do is, my goal is to put a team together. Ideally, when you talk about exorcism, you are talking about our ministry to the sick. Just like we have a youth ministry office in Sacramento, just like we have a family office for family life, a tribunal for marriages, we should have an office for ministry to the sick. And it would be called a healing ministry. Exorcism would just be one part of it. But ideally, I would have an office, I would have a Catholic counselor that I would be working with, I would have a doctor that I'd be working with, and then myself, ideally another exorcist or 2 in the diocese. I'm working on that, trying to develop that. And then a team of prayer warriors, people usually from the charismatic movement who have been given gifts of prophecy and understanding, and especially discernment of spirits, to know this person who's here, what do they need? And then I just talked to my Mary. When you said Mary, is that Mary from the Newman Center?
Yes.
In Davis? Okay. Well, I called up Mary. I realized after the conference back in August in Chicago, I said, I need a team. But how can I do this? At that time, I was pastoring 3 parishes, and we were in church. It's impossible, and I'm by myself. And I said, I can't develop this ministry. And priests from around the diocese were sending me people. You know, this person I think has trouble here. They want to meet with you. And I said, Lord, I can't meet with every person individually and do all this. And so I realized at a conference that I needed a team. And I said, how do I put this team together? So I called Mary, and she came out, and I've been working with several people, one lady from Chico, another person from Sacramento, and Mary came over. I should not be working, especially with ladies individually. When I pray over people, I should be working with another person. There should be another person there, especially if I'm working with a woman. So Mary came over, and she was working with me, and I said, Mary, how do I do this? And she said, go down to Stockton, and there's a deacon down there. He has a prayer team with him. And so we went down there, and it was a great confirmation, because much of the way I was praying with people, he was with them. And so now I think I'm going to model something after what he does. They have a Mass at 12 o'clock noon, so I would do maybe like you guys have Theology on tap. I would have whatever, the devil on tap or something. Maybe once a month. Once a month or twice a month would have a healing Mass connected with the charismatic renewal. And it would be on a Friday night. And what I would say is anybody who's gotten in contact with me, anybody who wanted to come, could come to that healing Mass. And what they did in Stockton, they celebrated Mass, and then they had adoration for a little bit, 15, 20 minutes. They prayed the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and then the deacon went around and with his prayer team prayed over each person there. Many of the people there had been there many times before, and they were just being prayed over for healing, physical healing. One person was going in for an operation for healing. But every now and then, spirits will react to a person, and then they would break up into prayer teams and take that person back. And when we had come down, we came down with the lady I'd been working with in Chico, and this is a lady whose mother was a Satanist. And if you have occult practice, whether you personally or in your family or in your bloodline, anybody in your past, any occult activity like that, especially Satanism, they consecrate your bloodline. And that's why in a baptism, the priest is supposed to do an exorcism. He's supposed to pray over the baby and cut any spirits that child may have received through the bloodline. Spirit of alcoholism, spirit of abuse, spirit of addiction, spirit of Satanism, spirit of Antichrist, spirit of suicide. Whatever that child might have inherited, you break that through the bloodline. You might be asking a question. Ask him how you break those things. We'll go over what you have in your folder there, because it has prayers on how you break those things. And so she had been consecrated by her mother, sadly used as a child in rituals, satanic rituals, and just really, I would say messed up, but not messed up, but just under attack. So we've been working with her, and we took her down. And so we took her in the back, and the deacon prayed with her and over her, and in the same way that I had been. So is she free? No. Spirits don't go away when you tell them to. I wish they would, but they're very strong, and they're very stubborn, because they know if they're going away, they're going to hell. If they leave the person, we command them to go straight to the foot of the cross. They know if they go there, it's over. Jesus will do what he wants with them, which he would send them to hell. So they don't want to leave the person. Why is it that you don't know spirits are there? How is it that my friend's wife for her whole life had been affected with this and didn't know it? Because they don't want to be discovered. They work covertly. They don't want you to know they're bothering you. And so if they can do it without you knowing it and keep you in depression or keep you in anxiety or keep you in addiction or keep you in unforgiveness, then they know they got you without you knowing it. And they're trying to pull you down. But once they're addressed and, in other words, smoked out, you force them out in the name of Jesus Christ, then they're forced to come out. Then they'll start getting angry. Then they'll start speaking to the person that they are in.